think the biggest advice I would give to people is, to overcome the fear of uncertainty with starting your own practice, because I think that is what held me back longer. And fear can be a great motivator under certain circumstances, but it can also hold you back tremendously. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do it, whatever it takes.
Welcome back to another episode of the Success in South Florida podcast. I'm your host, Adam Rossen, and today we have a virtual episode. So excited to have David Benn here. David's an amazing attorney. I'll let him obviously talk about himself. I love when our guests can introduce themselves because they can always do a much better job than me. But I know David's a local South Florida attorney handling workers' comp cases. So David, I'm going to give you the mic and let you kind of take it away. Tell us, just tell us about you, what makes you successful, and then we'll go through the whole entrepreneurial journey.
Wow, I wish I was somebody who is much more comfortable speaking glowingly about themselves. My name is David Benn. I've been a licensed attorney here in Florida since 2006. So I guess that means I've been doing this for 18 years. We started our current practice, workinjuryrights.com, 10 years ago. We had our 10-year anniversary about a month or so ago.
Congratulations.
And we exclusively, thank you very much. We exclusively represent individuals that suffer on the job accidents and injuries here in the state of Florida. We're handling cases all over the state, from the Panhandle down to the Lower Keys. And over the past 3 years, we've been able to significantly scale our practice to the point now where we're retaining over 1,200 clients consistently, at least every year for the past 3 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's some major growth that you've had. So David, I want to kind of, let's rewind a little bit. Okay. Are you a native Floridian, or did you move here as a kid, or did you come down for college or law school? What are your ties to South Florida?
Yeah, so believe it or not, none of those. I am not a native Floridian. I was born in the city of Philadelphia. I grew up in a suburb of Philadelphia called Lower Merion Township, home of the late Kobe Bryant.
Yes.
I went to college in Boston. I went to law school just outside of Philadelphia at a school called Rutgers-Camden. Rutgers has two law schools, one in Newark, New Jersey, one in Camden. I went to the one closer to Philadelphia. And after law school, I was just like, I don't know, I just gotten out of a serious relationship. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was pretty confident I didn't want to work in my father's practice. My father still has his own personal injury practice to this day in Philadelphia. So I visited a friend who at the time in the summer who was moving from Philadelphia to South Florida. I was like, wow, this is awesome. You got the beach, the weather's great. And so I just was like, you know what? It's time for me to make a change in my life. I moved down here, studied for the bar, and the rest is history.
Nice. All right, great. Where did you decide to kind of plant your flag? Was it Miami, Fort Lauderdale? I mean, I know now your office is in Pompano, but was it always in Broward?
No. So when I first, well, our office has always been, our headquarters has always been in Broward County, because the partners, my wife Stacy and my other partner William, we've always lived in Broward, so it made sense to have a headquarters in Broward. But in terms of my personal trajectory, I've never ever lived in Miami. I've worked in Miami, but I never lived there. I've always lived in either like South Palm Beach County or downtown Fort Lauderdale and suburbs in Broward County.
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm one of the few, well, not so few anymore, but still definitely, we have less people who are born and raised Floridians. That was me. I was born and raised in Boca, and went to school between Boca and Fort Lauderdale. That is definitely a different type of South Florida than Miami. Miami, I don't think Miami's South Florida. Miami's Miami. And then South Florida can be Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, Boca, even a little West Palm. But yeah, Miami is a whole different track. And when I went to Miami for law school, I thought it was South Florida and I go there and I'm like, I had a rude awakening. I'm like, oh, this is, wow, this is Miami. This might be North Cuba. It's a whole different world. So I learned the hard way, but yeah, so it's great. It's okay. So you're
Yeah, I mean,
basically,
like
you've been here for a while.
I've been here for since I've been a licensed
Yeah.
attorney, basically. So for the past almost 2 decades.
Okay. And how did the law firm come about? Did you guys just automatically start your own back then, or did you, come up have a different practice or work for somebody else?
No, so I spent the first 7 years, of my legal career bouncing around between, I guess, three law firms. I worked for a couple plaintiffs' law firms, and I spent a stint working at Conroy Simberg in Hollywood that did insurance defense. Um,
You and about 5,000 other lawyers in South Florida.
yeah, that's a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people you talk to are like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, I worked there too. It's like, wow, everybody's worked there.
right. There could be
Um,
a very large alumni Facebook group.
yes, yes, there would be a very huge group. Um, but the first 7 years I spent working for other law firms, working for other people, um, and it just by happen to circumstance, like shortly after I got married in September of 2013, my wife, who was a career insurance defense attorney, but specifically a career in-house insurance defense attorney. And for maybe the people that are listening to this podcast that don't know the difference, like a private insurance defense attorney is billable hour driven. They're trying to, actually, I don't want to necessarily say that, but they're getting compensated based upon the amount of hours they bill, whereas the in-house insurance defense attorney is making a salary. They're not concerned with generating billable hours. So she had worked in that industry, specifically that subset of insurance defense, for many, many years. Long story short, she lost her job like when we were 9 months into our marriage. And at the time, you know, that was pretty devastating for us. Like, we're like, we got to figure this out. She had a pretty good severance package from the insurance company she was working for, one of the larger insurance companies in the state or in the country, probably. And then we utilized that as an opportunity to be like, okay, why don't you start this thing? And then if we can generate some cases and actually generate practice, um, I'll jump on. So it wasn't shortly after that, maybe within a couple months, that we were able to start generating cases with whatever marketing. I don't even remember the marketing tactics we were using in
Right.
2013, but it was nothing groundbreaking, I assure you of that, and certainly nothing expensive because we didn't have the money. And then, next thing you know, we built a practice somehow.
So that's an amazing story, and I think a lot of the innovation and just having kind of the gumption to go ahead and start something. Just a lot of times it comes from a negative situation like that. So, what's something that for our listeners that you would tell them that you learned, you and your wife really learned from your experience that allowed that to be your superhero origin story as far as how you created? Because obviously we'll get into how big and successful the firm is now. But right, what piece of advice would you give based on that?
I think the biggest advice I would give to people is, to overcome the fear of uncertainty with starting your own practice, because I think that is what held me back longer um, than I probably could have been held back. I was just so fearful that it wouldn't work out, that I wouldn't be able to get cases, that I wouldn't be able to have a practice, that I wasn't good enough as a business owner or even as an attorney to take that next step. And I think you have to overcome that fear, because there's probably a laundry list of people that are still in the same place they were 10 years ago that or I know because of fear. And fear can be a great motivator under certain circumstances, but it can also hold you back tremendously. And I think it's really being able to look yourself in the eye and say, you know what, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do it, whatever it takes. And that was the attitude, I still try to have. And I don't want to sit here and pretend like there aren't times where I'm afraid to do anything. Now the stakes are much larger. I have a much larger practice. I have people that actually work for me now, which is not when you first start your own practice. I mean, typically it's just you. Um, but look at the environment we're in right now. I mean, I don't know. I believe you're primarily criminal law, right?
Right. All we do is criminal defense.
Yeah. So the way you can operate a practice now in 2024, 2025 is so different than, when I first started or possibly when you first started. Like, you literally just need a computer and you're good to go. A computer and a cell phone and you're ready. You could start your own law practice tomorrow. So the barriers to entry have really come down for a lot of attorneys. So the biggest thing I could say is just not letting fear hold you back and just adopting the mindset that, like, whatever it takes, you will overcome. And look, I'm sure you've had challenges in starting your own practice. I've had challenges, but the reality is, we're still standing here, and I'm certainly
Oh,
no Jeff Bezos or no innovator or no, scholar.
right. Well, and I'll tell you, you're absolutely right. That's one of the things that I've learned so much. So, I mean, I started my firm in 2006. I was only a prosecutor for less than 2 years, and me and my roommate, and we became partners, and we were both prosecutors, and we just kind of jumped together. In a way, I mean, having the partner helped me overcome fear. I don't know if I would have. I can tell you, I wouldn't have done it at that age by myself. There was a lot of fear, but luckily for us, we were too young and dumb to fail. We weren't making a ton of money, and I wasn't married, had nobody to support, no kids, no nothing like that. So it was easy. And looking back, I was like, wow, our kind of marketing plan and business plan was really bad, but we stumbled into things and we didn't need a lot of money to survive. That was something that was really great. Um, and then when we split in 2015, there was a lot of fear then because we had grown, but not grown. We never grew enough where we had staff. So for 7, 8 years, it was me and him and no staff. And then, kind of restarting over, there was a lot of that fear. And I read a lot of books, listened to a lot of podcasts, and just tried to learn and overcome that fear. But because I think the vast majority of people, fear will hold them back above anything. It can be a great motivator. And so the fear of failure can be a great motivator to some people. And still that motivates me. But so many, I'd say for me, the fear of failure is a motivator. But for most people, it's a big block that never lets them reach their full potential. And so anybody listening to this, I think, David, what you said was spot on. People really need to take that and understand. And one of the acronyms that I came up, or that I didn't come up with, but that I really use, that I heard from somebody, is fear to me means false events appearing real. And I always try to think back about that when I am getting fearful. And I'm sure you've gone through this as well, but the $5,000 decisions in 2014, 2015, 2016 are, have become now $50,000 decisions. And some of them have become, I don't know, about maybe 500,000, definitely at least, we're now having 100, 200, $250,000 decisions. And sometimes that's pretty scary, but I think as long as you have confidence in yourself and confidence in the plan and the idea behind it, you're not just willy-nilly, just doing random things, it's going to work out. The worst never happens. So I think you're spot on with that. And so let me ask you this: how have you guys, right, going through and evolving with the $5,000 decisions that are now 50,000, 100,000, 200 plus $1,000 decisions? How are you and your wife? And you said there's 3 partners, right? You, your wife, and another partner.
Yes.
How are you guys managing those decisions?
So the way we've managed it is we've really kind of tried to segment the business operations of the law firms into essentially like 3 distinct categories. One of my partners is primarily responsible for managing the litigation, which there's a lot involved with that. So he essentially deals with the attorneys, making sure that whatever policies and procedures we have in place that they're compliant with, that they're meeting. We try to give them statistical metrics as, I don't want to say, as kind of guidelines. We
Right.
understand if you're a younger attorney, you're newer, you're not necessarily going to be there right away. But essentially, we're looking for them to hit certain statistical metrics consistently. So he essentially monitors that. He knows pretty much every day of the week how much money's being generated, how many cases are being settled. I manage the marketing and the financial aspect of the law firm, and our third partner, my wife Stacy, manages the client satisfaction, which is a really big component of what we do, is basically trying to
Absolutely.
make sure our clients are happy. which it sounds simple, but there's a lot that goes involved in that.
Well, you're dealing
And
with
essentially,
people.
what we do is yes, and we discuss these things on a weekly basis. We get together, we go over these things, and that's how I've been able to digest it. I think if I was just the sole owner of this business, and I was doing all three of those things, or one person was doing all three of those things, it would be extremely challenging. So I'm actually, you know, I'm very fortunate to have my partners. I'm pretty sure we would not be able to achieve what we've achieved thus far without each other. So it's been and I think we complement each other. We all have very different personality types. They calm me down. I'm very impulsive. I see a shiny new object and I tend to like fall like, oh, we should be doing this.
That's me.
And yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, we got to have meta ads all day. Like, I see a million different things. And I mean, when you talk about attorney marketing, there's literally so many different channels you can be in now. It's pretty crazy compared to where it was, 2 decades ago. So it's worked out. The way we have it currently structured. But yeah, I think if it's one person or two people, yeah, it's a heavy lift. And you got to build an infrastructure around you, or people, leaders or managers to support you to help take on some of that weight that you carry.
Right. Absolutely. And that's why, at the firm, we have a leadership team. I'm still the sole owner as of now, but we have an amazing leadership team. We run on EOS. We've been running on that for the last 4 years, which is a business system. And we have our accountability charts and different roles and responsibilities. And it's helped a lot. It really has.
The Success in South Florida podcast is brought to you by the team at Rossen Law Firm. If you need DUI or criminal defense representation, call the Rossen Law Firm at 754-206-6200 or check the description of today's episode for more contact information. The Rossen Law Firm, helping good people when bad things happen so they can achieve their best futures.
Yeah, so I mean, we thought about bringing in an EOS implementer. I think there's elements of EOS in kind of the things that we do. But I do like the concept with respect to EOS of just constantly setting like benchmarks and goals, because I don't think the one thing I think we lack as a company is I don't think we're forward thinking enough. I don't think we have a 3-year, a 5-year, 10-year plan. So those are the elements of EOS, because I read Gino Wickman's book. Those are the elements of EOS that I think I want to start incorporating, having more of like a long-term vision in terms of where do I want to be in 5 years and what are the things we have to do now for us to get there.
Right. It's helped us a lot with our 1, 3, and 5 year. We were a mess so we didn't have much infrastructure at all when we started with EOS. So it helped us with the meeting cadence. It helped us with everything there. Our rocks. It's been really good, and we're in our 4th year. But yeah, so obviously with you guys with your weekly meetings, that's EOS stuff. That's like a level 10 meeting that you guys are probably having and doing on your own. But for us, it is really nice, and you know what it does? It helps kind of calm me down, because I'm just like you, shiny new object, this idea, that idea. But then I have to go back and go, well, okay, what's our 1 year, and what are our rocks, and is this, what's our 3 year, and right, and how are we going to get there, and is this going to get us there, or is this just some new fun toy, right? And then from there, I think it's a system for making consistently better decisions. And I think any business really needs, a system, and people, my clients in particular, need systems for creating consistently better decisions. So that's something that, really, really helped us a lot. Now, so you guys have had the firm, for, you say over 10 years now, right? And
just over 10 years.
It's been right. Congratulations on that. That's amazing. Right. And it's been exclusively workers' comp the entire time?
One practice area, Florida workers' comp cases. That's it.
Right. And that's great. That just like us, right? We're experts in criminal defense. That's it. I know nothing about anything else. And I really want to keep it that way. But so what's some advice that you would give to people, just things that you've learned along your journey? Because there's a lot of people out here, lawyers, non-lawyers, I know you've been in some coaching groups and you've had probably some mentors in your life. So where have some of those things really just helped your guys, growth from a business and personal standpoint?
Yes. So from a business standpoint, um, we decided in 2021, coming out of the pandemic, or I guess we in Florida were coming out of the pandemic. Everybody else was
Right.
still kind of in the pandemic.
Yep.
I wanted something to change. I think we all understand, attorneys understand, when you're a small practice, yes, you get to keep a lot of the money, which is great, right? Like you have a high margin, but wearing 10 hats or 12 hats in your business is exhausting and challenging and difficult. So I just got to a point where I was just exacerbated because workers' comp litigation is very like intensive. It's not easy. It's not linear. It's not like a personal injury case where client signs retainer, treats, make demand. If it doesn't settle, file. It's not linear like that. Workers' comp cases are constantly going in and out of litigation, and it's more challenging than most people realize. So doing the litigation and then managing the company, I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I need to hire a consultant. So a friend of mine linked me up with Louis Scott, who is the owner of 8-figure firm. At the time, he was a partner in a large Atlanta personal injury law firm that had achieved like, I don't even know at the time, maybe 20 or 30 million in revenue.
Right.
So I was like looking at him, I was like, wow, you look at what you've accomplished.
Yep.
Like if you can help me get anywhere close to that, I'll be super happy. So we've been working with him for 3 years, and he really made us understand, like, if you want to have this high margin business, you're never going to be able to grow because you can't reinvest what you need to reinvest in the business to have it grow. And your clients are going to be unhappy because you're going to be understaffed. So I just remember we just started making all these investments like right away. I was always a believer in marketing because I had to be, because I needed cases. And
Yeah.
workers' comp is the old model, like from, I want to say, and maybe a lot of firms still operate this way. A lot of law firms who are in my business do not spend any money on marketing. They just rely upon referrals from other law firms that do some level of marketing or have a personal injury practice and don't handle workers' comp. That's fine. That's cool in terms of, all right, I'm going to get these cases for $0 or very little amount of money, and I'll have a high margin business. And you can function like that to some degree.
Right. You can be the owner of a great job that way.
Yes, exactly.
You're not really owning a business.
You can set yourself
and you can be a highly
up.
paid
Correct.
owner of a great job. Yeah.
And there's people that are totally control freaks that have to handle the cases. They cannot contemplate somebody else doing the legal work, and they need that. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I do not cast aspersion on anybody that wants to run their practice that way. But I got to a point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not making me happy. I don't care how much money you give me. You can double or triple my pay. I'm still going to be miserable. I don't want to be miserable for the rest of my life. So Louis started making us understand we had to make certain investments. Number one, we had to invest more money in payroll, because one of the things that made my job so challenging is I was understaffed. And because I was understaffed, clients were not having adequate communication at certain touch points throughout their case. They were getting pissed off, and they were either giving me hell, or they were, worse, terminating our representation, hiring another law firm. So that was one of the first things we fixed. That cost a lot of money. We had to bring in a lot of people. We started working more on the marketing, just getting a more refined message. At the time, we had rebranded to workinjuryrights.com, which just coincided with us hiring Luis. He had nothing to do with that decision. And he made me understand that, like, you're going to have to go through a little bit of pain and take a short-term loss for a long-term gain. So we did that. We essentially cut down our margins. Yes,
David, let me stop you right there. Right. Yeah. How did you and now, look, you and your wife, partners in life, partners in a business. So what kind of conversations did the two of you have? And then with your third partner as well?
Yeah. So it was a difficult, that period of time was very difficult for me. because you're used to a certain level of comfort when you have a higher margin business. And that comfort was being slowly taken away from me because I was like looking at these expenses, my payroll now, I laugh, but like there was a time when like my payroll was like, I don't know, like $17,000 every 2 weeks. I was like, oh, this is
right.
that
Ton of
that
money.
at the time seemed like a lot of money. If my payroll now was 17,000 every 2 weeks, I would jump for joy. But it's very difficult to process that. I just kept telling our partners, like, guys, we have to like sacrifice our lifestyle for like a year to 18 months. That's all I'm asking. Let's give it a year to 18 months, and we will start to see the benefits from this. The reality is it took a lot longer than that. I think for us to get back to where we were at a smaller margin, it took us probably about 3 years. It was a 3-year investment. So essentially a 36-month sacrifice of your bottom line where it used to be. But for me, it is worth it because now I am standing atop a business that is going to consistently generate, like, I don't know if I should even talk money, but like consistently generate millions and millions of dollars every year. It's predictable. And I know exactly based upon how many cases I'm signing up in the previous year, give or take, where my revenue stream is going to be next year. And it's that predictability that I needed. So, because before it was just like you'd have if you worked really hard one month, maybe you'd have a good month, maybe you wouldn't.
Right.
It was just all over
and the
place.
predictability of the leads, the predictability of everything, right? You never know. I mean, look, I remember 2008 to 15 with me and my old partner we had our number that we had to hit. 95% of the time we hit it, but every Sunday night it was that anxiety of, okay, we did it last week. What are we going to do again? And, are we starting all over? It was kind of like in Greek or Roman mythology when Sisyphus was rolling the ball up the hill, and then at the end of the day, the ball comes crashing down and he has to wake up the next day and do it again. And it was just, without knowing, was this going to actually happen or not? It was very stressful. And we're getting there. I don't know if I'm quite there like you, but the firm is getting there where I'm starting to see a lot of predictable patterns in big cases, medium cases, and our smaller cases of just coming in, because our fees can range quite a bit. But that predictability, I think that's what makes me sleep well at night, even despite knowing that some decisions could be $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 decisions.
But you're in a business, and I think lawyers need to understand this. Contingency fee is what makes this whole part of scaling challenging. If you're in a business where you can immediately recycle your retainer fees, like in immigration or your practice area criminal, I don't want to say it's exponentially easier to do it, just because you have that money coming in. Literally, like when, I guess if you want to think about it like strictly in business terms, when I get a new customer client and I am making a sale, I am not getting paid at the point of sale, but you are. You can immediately recycle those proceeds into your law firm. So your practice area has this component to it, because you're not doing contingency fee work, where that makes it so much. I think your practice area, immigration, those types of firms where you're getting paid up front are just, you can rapidly scale very quickly. I don't know anything about the rest of the business in terms of margins, or the margins is good, stuff like that. But I do know that if you're getting paid, I don't know what a DUI pays these days. What is it? What is the average retainer fee on a DUI?
I mean, so for us on a first DUI, depending on the facts, roughly 6,000 to 10,000, depending. 10,000 is going to be if it's a crash or more serious stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can take a portion of that 6,000 or 10,000, immediately reinvest in your company to get more DUI clients. So it's there is a distinct advantage that I think practices like yours have.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I definitely think the fancy PI lawyers, their profit margins are much higher, but those, and it's interesting too, because for me, those are things 10 years ago I would never even discuss. Those are words. Profit margin was a word that I probably didn't even know, right? And now, to hear us having a business conversation is really interesting, because as we've grown too, we've, not just predictability, but we want to run on metrics, like you said, numbers, and there's still the human component to it, but I think in a way, when you have it based on metrics and numbers, you can be a better leader. You can have employees buy in more, because then they can directly see, oh, this isn't Adam. It's not that Adam's favoring one person or over another. It's just, here's the bottom line. Here are the numbers. And I'm a big believer in Pearson's law, which is, when performance is measured, it improves. And when it's measured and publicly reported, it improves exponentially. And we've done that with our team in positive ways. Of course, we really try to be positive about it. But I think that's always is a nice motivating factor to people to say, look, it's just, here's what it is. Now, if you're doing great, amazing. And if you're not, well, how can we help? What are the issues behind it? It's not just immediately, you suck, but it's okay. Let's figure it out. Right. And to be able to say, hey, the data shows that there's an issue or a problem. So that's been very helpful for us, just like what you were saying with that. But yeah, as you're growing a business, it's a fun ride, sometimes. So it definitely is. So now you guys make this commitment to go all in on, on scaling and trying to build an actual business, not just where the three of you have high paying jobs, right, with your name on the door. So now that you've scaled it, it took twice as long as you thought. Okay. What are some of the issues and challenges that you guys are facing now in your business?
So I don't want to say cool, but looking back, and I'm sure any business owner in any type of business could tell you this, like just the problems you have at a certain size tend to go away when you maybe double in size, but then you get a whole new set of problems. So I would say that, the first thing is you need to know your numbers. Like a lot of law firm owners don't know their numbers. And you need to put your systems in place so that you can know your numbers. How many cases are you signing up every month? How many cases are you rejecting? How many leads are you getting? How many of those leads are converting? Like just basic stuff like that. You need to establish that. We were always, I thought, good about it at the time, but I realized looking back, we weren't really good at it. We didn't have the systems in place. We didn't have the appropriate software systems. So we've taken care of all of that a long time ago now, 3 years ago or so. And now we know our numbers. We know typically, I say typically because Google can come in, throw an algorithm change out there, and it sets everything. Like I'm kind of going through that right now. You and I discussed this before recording that, we were like dominant, in local service ads for years. And all of a sudden, like literally 6 weeks ago, we started getting just an overwhelming abundance of employment law cases that I can do nothing with from local service ads. And despite our efforts to correct it, nothing has corrected it. And all of those leads cost the same amount of money. So we saw a higher cost of acquisition in this period of time and a lower conversion rate. So it's just stuff like that. When you talk about consistency, it's like, yeah, we can plan and we can do all these things, but we're still, subject to the whims of Google. And if Google implements an algorithm change or a platform change to one of their advertising methods that detrimentally impacts us, sadly, there's such a large company, they just don't care. So
and then you guys have to, again, you might be going in this direction, right? You guys might be plotting a course, and then you get hit with that big giant wave of an algorithm update, and then you guys, right, have to figure out, okay, wait a minute, is the entire year going to be changed or not, or is this a 6-week thing or a 6-month thing?
And that's I'm literally waist deep in that analysis right now in terms of, okay, what do we do with our direct response money? Do we put into another channel? What channels are performing well? It just so happens for us, and I don't know about your practice, like all of our direct response channels started performing poorer than normal since September. So I don't know if that's related to the upcoming presidential election and just so much advertising dollars being spent.
Right. I think it
But
could be. Yeah. I mean, that's
I
one of the things that we've heard. So, well, it'll be over in a week or so.
I
Well,
know,
a
so
week
I'm ready to.
as of the time of recording, we're about a week away
Yeah,
from the election, but who knows if we'll know who the president is by then. So,
yeah, true. So I mean, I highly doubt. Well, who knows? They typically, yeah, they keep running those ads for a little bit, but this goes
right.
back to a bigger lesson that I've learned that took me time to appreciate and understand is that you have to build your professional brand. And quite frankly, these days, the professional and personal brands are kind of intertwined. Um, that is what is going to make you stand out, and that is what is going to win in the long term. And you have a great opportunity because, to the best of my knowledge, and I pay attention to these things, I do not know one criminal lawyer or law firm that is branded in South Florida. Now, I know there's like criminal lawyers that have like some notoriety and fame because maybe they've handled bigger cases, but I mean, I don't see like billboards for criminal defense lawyers. I don't see
Right.
commercials for criminal defense lawyers. I, why do you think that is, by the way? You think it's just something that people
So,
just
well, there's a few reasons, and when you look at like compare criminal law to personal injury, I mean, I think there's a criminal lawyer in every block, there's a personal injury lawyer in every block. The difference is PI lawyers have much higher margins, and because there's a lot more money generally involved, the PI lawyers are a lot savvier with their marketing and know, and the competition, right? It's all about getting those cases. Criminal lawyers tend to all be congregated around the courthouse. We tend to be Better Call Saul or the Lincoln lawyer. Great trial lawyers that can get hired on a Tuesday and say, yeah, by Thursday I can try that case in 2 days, no problem. Right? They're a little more of cowboys. And that's why, at our firm over the last few years, we went from, I mean, we had, let's see, 5 years ago, we had 3.5 people, including me. Now we're almost 25 people. And that puts us at the top 1% probably of criminal law firms in the country, maybe top, 99.5% of that. It's just, criminal law tends to attract people that are really good trial lawyers, good craftsmen, but they're not really great at business and they don't really have that scalability. Now, of course, as you can start a law firm with a laptop and a cell phone, things are changing a little bit, but yeah, we've grown tremendously. And it's something we're exploring. So you've talked about direct response versus branding. Years ago, I used to think, for most people, when most marketers sell you on branding, it's like if I'm grossing, 200 grand, 300 grand in revenue, my client experience can kind of brand me in a way, but I don't need to be throwing dollars into branding. I need cases. I need clients. I need to spend in direct response. Once you get up to a few $1,000,000 in revenue, then I believe, okay, there is an opportunity to brand. So those are the things that we're looking at now from a firm for the first time really ever is how do we brand ourselves, some of the different channels. And so I've been going to the conferences that I go to are usually marketing management type things. And now I'm starting to go where the big boys and girls play, the fancy PI lawyers, the ones at 10, 20, 30, 50 million, to just be inspired by them and see, okay, well, where are they playing? What pond are they playing in? And how do I get in? And maybe it's not with being the billboard king, but maybe it's a few strategically located, ones, or maybe I take ideas of their branding and try to be still that scrappy self where we're a little more price sensitive on where we're spending the money, but maybe we can get a better bang for our buck branding in this avenue or that avenue. So we're trying to figure that out. That's a big part of our goals for the next few years.
it definitely the way it works, or the way it's supposed to work, and I can't take credit for this. This comes directly from the mouth of my business consultant, Louis Scott, 8-figure firm. Give him a shout out. But
Yes.
it should morph to like when you're in that 1 to 2 million range or somewhere below that, like 80% of your marketing budget should be on direct response because you need cases. And then once you're at like a 8 million and up level, which a lot of these big firms you're talking about are, it's the opposite. 80% of your money should be going towards brand because that is how you win the game. Long term, the way you win the game is people know who you are before they need you. If you're
Right.
just bottom of the funnel, your cost of acquisition over time, and I can tell you this personally because I've gone through this because I did not adopt branding early enough, or when I did, I would go in and out of it and not stay consistent with it. And those were mistakes. So I think what you have to do is you have to find like a certain amount of money you're comfortable just like burning, because it does take time. Like I'm spending what most people would say is a significant amount of money on Spanish radio advertisement in the Miami market. And we are seeing like pretty much nothing out of it. And the expectation is that we're probably not going to see anything out of it for, a 9 to 12 month period. So it's hard, and that's difficult. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that could be going into my pocket, but it's not. It's going into this long-term investment. So you have to you have to start when you get to a certain level. You have to start making those investments. You have no choice, because otherwise your cost of acquisition is just going to keep climbing, because you're going to keep trying to find the next direct response thing, whether it's Meta or Google or lead generation. And the reality is those things over time go up and up and up in cost.
And so, David, how are you guys? Again, we talked maybe a little bit about fear, right? And a little bit about short-term sacrifice for long-term gain, because we've covered both those topics already, but we're coming back to them. How are you and your partners dealing with that? And how much runway have you given for a long-term investment that will pay off? But right now it's belief, right? Because you still haven't seen the results.
So it's still very much belief. I don't think I know that it will pay off. I believe, based on everything that I've seen and just how other law firms have grown in this market and other similar markets, I believe it will be effective. But I don't know. I just don't. We've planned for it. So we allocated a certain amount of budget towards brand. We started going that direction in June. Preferably, we should have started earlier in the year, but we didn't. We decided to wait till after the first 2 quarters were completed. And we've planned for it. So the first thing I had to do to alleviate my fear is plan for it. The second thing, which I think all law firm owners that are trying to scale should do, is you need a safety net. So we set aside money every month. A certain percentage of our gross revenue goes into a savings account just as a rainy day fund. Hey, if we need to borrow money, we're going to borrow money from ourselves.
That's great.
Number 2, that might not be enough money depending on where you are in your scale or your revenue growth. We have a significant credit line with our bank. So if, God forbid, we need to do something or we need to take a short-term borrow, we have that ability. So that's what I do to alleviate my fear. But the reality is, I think it is a certain level of risk. No other law firm that is limited to my only practice area, which is workers' comp, has done really what we are doing, which is build a brand as a workers' comp only law firm. So it'd be easier for me to sit here confidently like, yeah, such and such law firm has done it. I've seen law firms in other markets do it. There's a law firm in Philadelphia, Pond Hockey, extraordinarily branded, affiliated with every pro sports team, tons of billboards. Like, it has been done, just not here. So I look at all the data, I look at where it's been done before, I look at how people have done it, and I say to myself, is this a good entry point for us? Does this meet our demo? Is our target market in this demo? So I feel as confident as I can, but I'd be lying if I sat here and it's not frustrating. I mean, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to spend, lots of money on something where it's yielding nothing.
Right. But that's also, I think a lot of people won't have the full commitment to go all in. And a lot of people will do it for 3 months or 6 months and then quit. They get, again, fear. They get scared. They're not willing to truly, go all in. Maybe, you said burn the cash. I say burn the boats, right? And there is no point of return. Well, maybe there is, but, they're not really willing to give it what it truly takes. And I think, obviously you guys, through all of your coaching and all of the business acumen that you guys have collected and everything that you're doing, you have that. So I have no doubt that it's going to work. But I think it's a good lesson for anybody listening to this, for all of our listeners to learn from this from you, because far too many people just give up too quickly, or either too quickly or when they're right on the cusp of seeing things change and turn around.
Listen, I was one of them. We were running television spots. I think I've done multiple different types of branding. I think we like dabbled in bus benches when we were a much smaller business, so I didn't have the bandwidth to just like let that money burn.
Right.
And before I had a consultant, we would dabble in television. When I say dabble, like I would spend some money on it, and then I'd be like, no, we can't spend this kind of money. Like there's a compounding effect of staying consistent. And it took me a real long time to appreciate that. And what I would tell anybody is like, look, don't just go out there and just willy-nilly drop coin on branding. You got to plan for it, and it depends on your size. If you're a 2 million and less, you should not be spending more than 20% of your budget on branding. So if you're a $2 million law firm and your marketing budget theoretically should be $500,000, well, you shouldn't spend more than $100,000 on branding. But that $100,000 could be giving your clients like swag. It doesn't have to be these heavy, big
not
ticket
TV
items.
or billboards.
Yeah. So, and we do all those things too. And I think remarketing your clients is a big thing. Making your clients happy is a big thing. It's important to us, and it's frustrating to make something so high on your priority list that you're not going to be perfect at. You're not going to succeed 100% of the time, because like human beings, you can't make every human being happy all the time. It's not possible. But you have to look at your numbers and be like, okay, am I making 90%, 95% of my clients happy all the time? And if you're achieving that, you're achieving something that truly is in our business, pretty special. So I don't know. I feel like I've
I agree
all over a lot of topics.
Yeah, no, but I agree on that, especially since, look, we're helping people, you're helping injured workers, right? We're helping people who have been arrested for a crime, maybe having a mental health or substance abuse issue, people going through some of the worst times in their lives. And sometimes the vast majority of our clients are amazing people and very grateful. And sometimes there's just some other things and other factors going on that where they can't really understand or appreciate the hard work we're doing. And sometimes, look, every great business will have some quality control issues and might make a mistake or fail that particular client. Hopefully that never happens, hopefully, or it's less than 1%, but it does happen. Right. And I think it's as our job as the business owners to just make sure we have a great culture, a great team, and great systems and policies and procedures in place to always give a great customer or client experience. We always strive for Ritz-Carlton level. I say strive because we could never, we'll never hit it perfect all the time, but I think we do a pretty good job, and we're constantly reinforcing that. And we're in the relationship business, because when you treat somebody well and you build a relationship with them, and you never hope they come back, but you hope they bring a friend, right? Those client referrals are basically free. The cost of acquisition is extremely low. So David, it's been great talking to you about this. I want to give you some, final parting words of wisdom that you have for our audience. And then what's the best way that our audience can connect with you?
Wow. Final parting words of wisdom. A lot of pressure here. I think just going back to, there's so many things we touched upon in this conversation, but I think just is to try. And look, it's difficult for me at times. Like, I'm not some tough guy. I have fears too. But to try to, as best you can, to overcome those, because it can really hold you back in life. And especially if there's a younger attorney out there listening to this, who's thinking about doing it, but they're afraid, how am I going to pay my bills? Like, I promise you, you will figure it out. I figured it out, and I am no superstar by any stretch of the imagination. So you could be. So you could probably easily figure it out and be very successful. As far as the firm, our domain is workinjuryrights.com. We're on Instagram at workinjuryrights, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube. I think we're on X, pretty much everywhere. So just Work Injury Rights, very easy to find.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much again. Great talk. Tons of wisdom here. And I know our listeners will really enjoy this episode. So thanks so much. And, take care.
All right, you're very welcome.